never know when you get it right.
Well, check the right table for me in a second. Right table, RT.
Oh.
Test. Yep. Push the talk. Next towel or something. You may want to turn her down a little bit. Can you do a test?
Testing.
Testing.
You good, James?
I'll have to. Yeah.
Well, you'll get the second allocation.
Yeah, you're probably. I know, right? Aren't you proud of me?
How are you?
Yeah, I can see now. I know, just those I couldn't see.
Even 6'5" James can't do that.
Ah!
You know, when I first started practicing law,
Push the
first
talk.
two signs.
Testing.
It should only
The water authority would run through the sewer.
shouldn't get your head when it's not on you.
You know, so when I go,
I got the problem with this one.
Still that loopy handle.
no, he won't turn you on.
I guess it's the same, it's like the same person. They all, it's back in the 60s.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Susan. Oh, we were friends. We're going to go to lunch tomorrow.
Card catalog. One card. They just said, you ran into like a subdivision. And we had to also right put them in that card.
You know,
Couldn't get that. We had a form. Well, we had a form, so a copy of it. Grant to our engineer, they run the inspection, check the box, signature, witness, and then you do the right one.
Brian, bring the junk drive.
Until we ran across.
What? Oh, bring.
Well, we can always get a copy of this. Print out a copy. She hated it.
No.
She wanted to print a copy. She used the horizontal copy machine.
Yeah. You know what I mean. Yeah, I'll bring it down.
It's at the end. It's at the end of mine. It's on the screen.
Well, I got in trouble for not wearing any colors. Blue is my color. Blue and white. That's the value.
Good evening. Thank all of you for being here today. My thought for today is we are only strong as we are united and weak as we are divided. That's Emma's Dumbledore. I'm going to officially call this meeting to order tonight. Tonight I'm going to ask if Commissioner Henderson would lead us in our invocation, and Commissioner Sanders, if you would lead us in our pledge, please.
Thank you, Mr. C. Will everyone bow their heads? Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you with thanksgiving in our heart. My Father, I'm often reminded of a parable that's in the Bible, that him that is first shall be last, and him that is last shall be first. You can have been doing something for a long time and working for the Lord, and then you can be doing it for a short time, but the pay is still the same. Thank you, my Father, for just enabling us, looking over us, guiding us, so that we as the Commissioner shall do what thus says the Lord. This we pray. In my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Good evening to everyone. To our Board of Commissioners, we'd like to welcome everyone to our Newton County Board of Commissioners regular meeting, September 6, 2022. Mr. Chairman, our first order of business will be number 4, the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioners. I seek a motion that we adopt this agenda, please. It's been motioned by Commissioner Edwards and second by Commissioner Cowan. Any discussion? All in favor? It passes 4-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our next item on the agenda would be number 5, citizen comments.
This is the opportunity that we allow our citizens to make comments on agenda topics only. You have 3 minutes to do so. You may come at this time. They don't do it in a raw deal. You may come at this time. No comments? Thank you, ma'am. Next is the chairman's report. I take that one. The chairman's report. We will have with us Dr. Arona. Dr. Arona, if you would please come on up. Dr. Arona represents Department of Health for Gwinnett, Newton, Rockdale counties. We are thankful tonight to have you with us here to give us an update, a report on what's going on in our communities. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me, Chairman Baines and Commissioners. Nice to see you all this evening. I take it you have a screen in front of you, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
great. Let me start, and by the way, I didn't ask to be first. I would have been happy to be last, by the way, but I appreciate you. I do want to just update you a little bit about our monkeypox outbreak in the United States. Monkeypox is not new. It is a rare virus, but it's been with us for a very long time, since 1958, and it's endemic in certain parts of Africa. But in May of this year, there was quite a large global outbreak, and currently our global cases are now over 53,000 globally. The United States is the country with the most cases right now. Over 100 cases have monkeypox, and most of those, over 90% of those, have never seen monkeypox before. So we think this all started with a travel case. In the United States now, we have near 20,000 cases, and in all 50 states, and Georgia has about 1,445 cases now. So currently our epidemiology suggests that the transmission is primarily through person-to-person prolonged skin-to-skin contact, which is really important because we're not seeing cases transmitted in our school systems. We're not seeing the monkeypox transmitted in our community. We're not even seeing it in our healthcare providers who are actually testing these individuals. So that's really important for you to see. Georgia is number 5 in the nation in terms of cases. In our district, which is Gwinnett, Newton, and Rockdale, we have less than 120 cases, as I'll say, but most of those are in DeKalb. For Georgia, most of them are in DeKalb and Fulton County, of course. But again, less than 120 for our district, but most of those are in Gwinnett, of course.
So it's less than 120 for Newton, Rockdale, and Gwinnett?
And Gwinnett, right.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what's, oh, well, hello, my fault. Sorry about that. Okay, so in monkeypox, you know, in the United States, most of these are in adults, primarily in male population. And, you know, again, the main risk factor, this is that close, prolonged physical contact with someone who has lesions, actually. So the females and the children in Georgia and across the country that we've seen monkeypox transmitted to, those are all, to my knowledge, every single one of those linked to a household contact. So that's really important. Early on, they were, the cases were involved with travel, like I said, but lots of differences with this particular outbreak. We're not seeing the fever and prodromal symptoms that we see, you know, in the classic monkeypox outbreaks. So that's good news too. Demographic-wise, again, 95% of these are male. The mean age is 33. It's 70% black. And what's really interesting is that over 50% of these cases are HIV positive. And what's equally intriguing is that almost all of those cases that are HIV positive are in care and virally suppressed. So those don't tend to be immunocompromised patients, but nonetheless. And like I said, we're seeing most of it in Fulton and DeKalb counties. So, you know, this is really a typical example of what public health does. You know, we have contact, you know, tracing, we have case investigations. You know, we educate on prevention. We, you know, do a lot of education on transmission to try to prevent transmission. And then, of course, you know, we educate our physicians in different things. And so then when you add the vaccine effects onto this, that's really basically kind of outlines what we've been doing. COVID just took a lot longer, you know, than this. But I'm happy to tell you that in the United States, we've seen 40% less cases of monkeypox since early August. So the vaccine that's available is called Jynneos right now, and that's the one that we're using. It is available only through the Strategic National Stockpile. So it is available only to people who are contacts of household cases and those most at risk. So we call that PEP and PEP Plus. PEP is just post-exposure prophylaxis that we use, and then also the expanded one, that's for patients who are particularly at risk for that. So it is not a vaccine that is available to the general community, you know, right now. So COVID, just to give you a brief update on COVID worldwide, you can see the numbers there. In Georgia, we're seeing about 3,000 cases per day, which is down from the last couple weeks, which is really good. I'll show you a graph in just a minute so that you can see the different waves and how this last wave compares. But the predominant circulating variant is the BA.5. And, you know, as viruses progress, COVID is representative of the typical virus, because what happens is it becomes more transmissible but less deadly, because a virus doesn't want to kill its host. You know, it wants to transmit, it wants to become more transmissible. So that's what we've seen over the last few years with COVID, is that it's becoming highly more contagious but less deadly. And that's, you know, partly explained also by the fact that we, you know, have vaccinations out there. Plus, we also have a lot of people who have been infected with COVID, so that's what we're seeing there. But you can see that Georgia is about 57% vaccinated from, that's the overall population, And Newton County is right now at 49% fully vaccinated. That's the overall population. So we still have some work to do in this county. 44% of Newton County residents are fully vaccinated plus boosted. So that's important. And here's that graph I was showing you about. You can see on the far right that the wave, this last wave over the summer, the BA.5, is not near as high as it was second to the right. That was our Omicron, original Omicron in January that caused all the hospitalizations and stuff. And so we were really worried about this one. We are concerned about the fall because as colder temperatures move in and people move more into, indoors and around each other, that we may see more of that. We do have a new vaccine, a new COVID vaccine called Novavax. And this is really great because a lot of people are concerned about the mRNA technology. And so this Novavax vaccine is actually more traditionally made with protein subunits. You can see I'm not sure if I have a pointer on here, but you can see the kind of spindle-like purple in the middle of each one. You can see that the actual effect of every single vaccine is exactly the same. The way that it works is exactly the same. It's just how you get to that purple splat is the most important. All right, and then so we do have a new COVID booster. There we go. And this one is called the Bivalent Booster, and it's available now as of last week. The CDC and the FDA approved this under emergency use authorization. This is the Omicron adapted, so it's similar to like an annual flu vaccine. Pfizer and Moderna both have this. We are no longer, as of last week, able to give booster doses from the older vaccine. So if anyone wants a booster, the only booster available now under emergency use authorization is this new bivalent one. So Pfizer will be available 12 years and older, and it has to be 2 months after either a primary vaccine series or after their last booster. Moderna will be for 18 and older.
And we do have it here at our local health department.
We do. We just received Pfizer today. We got Moderna last week. Pfizer we got today, and so as of tomorrow it'll be at our health centers for sure, and it's available there. But again, it's 2 months after your second or after your last booster or after your primary series. What's interesting about this though is that unvaccinated people cannot just go to get the booster. What will happen is they have to receive the 2-dose series first, and then 2 months after that they'll receive the booster. So I wanted just to take a minute, I know you've got a full agenda, but I wanted to take a minute about something really, really important, and I just kind of want to talk to you about this and forewarn you that this may be, something coming in our United States. As you know, polio was eradicated years and years ago in the United States until recently. Polio is a very highly contagious virus that causes permanent paralysis and affects particularly children. And the problem with what we're seeing is that we've recently seen a case in the United States. Let me show you here. We have, just as a basis kind of to help you understand, we have 2 basic types of polio vaccine. One is an inactivated polio vaccine, and the other one is an oral form, but that is an activated form. And keep that in mind as we talk about this in just a second. So there's a couple ways or a couple different types of viruses with polio. One is a wild polio, and the other form of it is a vaccine-derived polio virus from the oral vaccine, which is the live vaccine. And what happens is that that oral vaccine is given to a population that's largely unvaccinated, and it circulates. What it can do is mutate or form into a wilder type of polio that then can cause paralysis. So if you look at this slide here, it's kind of busy, but in 1955, we got the inactivated polio vaccine that was used, and shortly thereafter, the oral form, which is the activated polio vaccine, came out. And the last wild case that we had in the United States was in 1979, and then in 1994, United States was, declared polio-free. So that meant that we did not need to use the activated polio oral form any longer. The difference is the inactivated polio vaccine will prevent infection, but the activated oral one prevents infection and transmission. And so obviously if we didn't have the polio virus in the United States, we didn't need to run the risk of giving the oral activated one, right? And so that's really kind of what happened. So in the United States, we haven't seen a polio case for a very long time, for decades, until recently. And what happened in this case is that this was a case in New York State, and this was a very young person who did not have any medical issues whatsoever, was not immunocompromised, really had no risk factors whatsoever, developed some fever, stiff neck, some weakness, that type of stuff, and 3 days later had more prolonged lower extremity weaknesses in that. And unfortunately, his doctor had just gotten off a webinar not long about polio and remembered that in these cases to always send, the samples for polio, even though we haven't seen it in this country. And he tested positive for this. So this person did not travel, which is usually when we see these cases. There was no international travel in this person, but he did attend a large gathering 8 days prior to his symptoms, which is the perfect timing for this to happen. And so that's how we believe that he contracted the polio, because again, that oral form can circulate in populations of largely unvaccinated people. And the take-home message of this is 65% of children in the United States have been vaccinated against polio, but the rest have not. And so this is really important because polio is 100% preventable. And I understand why some people are hesitant about COVID vaccine and that type of thing. I mean, I get that, but not polio. We can't see polio re-enter the United States. We have to save our children. So that is what I wanted to present to you all tonight. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Baines.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for being here. I do have one quick question. So people can get vaccinated at the same time with polio and COVID. Is that correct?
For polio and COVID?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I thought so.
Most people my age are very vaccinated against polio, and it's just in recent times when parents have really delayed that, I will just wait until they go to school, different things like that to kind of get caught up, if not declaring some kind of religious exemption for vaccinations too, which some parents do. So again, usually it's given on a 4-dose series in polio. Most people think, well, we don't give polio vaccinations in the United States anymore. That's not true. We do. We just give the inactivated polio vaccine, and we give 4 doses, and it's 2 months, 4 months, and then a little bit later on, and then at 4 to 6 years. So we've been doing that, forever. But again, a lot of people decline that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner, do you have any questions?
Yes,
Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. C. I know more recently, within about 6 months to 7 months ago, Sandy and myself, we went and got our booster shot for COVID. And we took our daughter, Akira, also to get her shot, and we went to CVS, and he told us, well, no, she don't need her booster shot. We took her to the doctor's office, and the doctor office said, why have you got her shot? And so I guess that, and maybe just for us, but I guess parents need to know that their child if they have received their booster shot, they need to receive it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And that's been a problem that we have faced throughout this entire pandemic, is getting misinformation and disinformation, corrected. And it's really difficult. We've tried to, part of the problem has been that the vaccine initially wasn't available to practitioners to give. Now they can. But initially it was just available through the health department, so a lot of physicians would just push people to the health department and not kind of, say, necessarily, but now we're having, you know, a better time at getting our physicians to give the vaccine as well. So, not monkeypox. Monkeypox vaccine is still available only through the health department in some places. But thank you for that comment.
Yeah. Anyone else? Commissioner Mason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Arona, for everything that you do for Newton, Rockdale, and Gwinnett. I thoroughly enjoyed our community conversation on Facebook Live last Friday, where we were able to kind of have this conversation and discussion via online so that we can continue to educate our residents over these viruses that are doing their best to try to take over our community, but we're not going to allow it. And so we thank you for all of the wisdom and the knowledge that you bring to our community and to our residents to really help educate us so that we can be assured and know what we can do to try to ensure that we prevent from incurring any of these viruses. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you once again.
Yes, you're so welcome, Commissioner. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate you. And thank you for being out there on the front lines, fighting for these for our community, and making sure that we are prepared and making sure we have the right information that we need. So thank you so much again for being here.
You are so welcome, and please reach out to me if you need anything. Use my cell phone 24/7 so we can take care of things as they surface. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman, the next item that you have is your actual chairman's report.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I do want to first thank Stefan Castle and his family for being here. He did get awards from the city of Covington and the Newton County school system. That young man's future is extremely bright in the classroom and on the basketball court. So we want to thank him for coming in our last board meeting. Also, Ms. Hodges and Liberty Middle School, we want to thank her as well. The board allocated funds for her and her team to go and showcase their talent, and we're excited about that. She does an amazing job. I remember a couple of years ago, my daughter, she was my daughter teacher, and she had a huge impact on her life. So I want to thank Ms. Hodges also for what they do. Coming up this Saturday, we're going to do a proclamation for Ms. Elijah Godwin. He is a gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist. We're going to give him a proclamation. It's going to be his day. We're doing it partnering with Police Who Cares. We're going to do that at this Fuzz Run this Saturday. So if you don't have anything to do, please come out and support this young man. He is a graduate of the Newton County school system. I think he went to Newton County High. And he's doing great things. We want to make sure that we honor him. We're going to honor him after the event. So the event is going to start, I think, at 8 o'clock. We're going to kick off at 8 o'clock, and it should last probably till around 9:30. Yeah. Also, we had an opportunity to be on a panel with Congressman Johnson. He talked about affordable homes in our community, and we had a great discussion. And he's going to do it again. We want to make sure that we get an opportunity. I'm trying to get him here so he can come and actually present to the board. He's doing great things in the community. So we want to talk about the resources that's available for our community. It's coming from his desk. Also, we had a Tri-Counties collaboration meeting. First, thank you, Dr. Rona, for attending that. We had Dr. Rona there, Jennifer Hebert from Viewpoint Health. We talked about mental illness. We talked about the different viruses that are attacking our community. We talked about transportation. We partnered with the chairperson in Rockdale County and the chairperson in Gwinnett County, looking how we can collaborate more together to do different things in our community. Want to make sure that we're getting the same message out, the same information. There's a lot of information that's being brought forth. We want to make sure that we get the correct information out coming from these different communities. And we're looking forward to doing this again. We do have a State of the Community Luncheon. We do it every year with the Chamber. We partner with the Chamber, and we get a few minutes to talk about the things that are going on in the community. That will be September the 4th at 11:45, and it's going to be held at the FFA camp. I'm sorry, September the 14th, I'm sorry. September the 14th at 11:45, so we hope that you guys can attend. Also, we finished up our bicentennial. We had a great time, had a great event there in the time capsule. We had a good bit of people in attendance. I'm gonna thank our bicentennial committee again. Y'all did a wonderful job putting different events together. Y'all took the lead and y'all ran with it, and I just want to say publicly thank you guys for all that you do. It was a great event. We had an opportunity to actually bear it, and a lot of different community leaders came out, so all that did come out, thank you so much. We have finished up now with our bicentennial for the next 200 years. When 200 years come again, they're going to dig it up and open it up and see what's all inside of it. Also, we kicked off Friday, we kicked off our Jersey Day, Jersey T-shirt Day with the employees. We were giving them opportunities to support their favorite team. Everybody loves Georgia, so it's Georgia versus, I guess, everybody else. I was hoping James Brown would be here today to hear that. Yeah. That's all we have in our chairman's report. Next.
Chairman, the next item on the agenda is item number 7, reports from our interim county manager, Mr. Jarvis Sims.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We have no report at this meeting today.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and then we have, Mr. Chair, number 8. The next item of business is unfinished business. We have an item that was tabled June 7th, the proposed facilities policy resolution number R090622, R060722.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. So, Board, you will recall back in June we had a discussion about a proposed policy to deal with tenants in your community facilities. During that discussion, there were a number of issues raised which we have addressed, which I've made an effort to address in the policy before you. What we did was we removed a limitation on the policy so that it applies to all county property, not just to your community centers. And we also sort of abbreviated the policy so that this policy before you, what it does is it only creates the application process that potential tenants in county-owned facilities would go through. The short version of the policy is this, that if the board adopts this policy, then the county manager would be responsible for developing and publishing an application form to be completed, that all applications for tenancy in any county facility would require the full legal name of the applicant, the name and address of each board member, officer, director, or employee of the applicant. If the applicant is a nonprofit, evidence that the applicant is in good standing under the laws of the state of Georgia and has been granted and maintains 501c3, which is the nonprofit status by the Internal Revenue Service. The application would require a description of the public programs and services to be provided on the property, evidence of the applicant's financial ability to provide those services, and that evidence would include, at a minimum, 3 years of audited financial statements or tax returns, and other information that the county manager determines to be appropriate. Once those applications are received, the county manager has to submit all of the applications to the Board of Commissioners. after the Board of Commissioners has received those applications, they would be presented on an agenda, and this board would approve the tenant to go into any facility, and at the same time would approve a lease agreement. So this policy does not set forth the terms of all the detailed terms of the lease agreement, doesn't establish any rules or regulations. It merely establishes an application form. And when that time comes, we will present to the board a lease agreement for any applicant. The one thing this policy does do is limit the term of the lease to 12 months. One other thing that this policy does, I want to bring your attention to, because I've already had a question about it. This would apply to any tenant other than a non-governmental tenant. So if you had any property that was to be leased to any private business, and I don't know that you do, but I also don't know that you don't. I don't know if you have any businesses operating out of county properties. This same policy would apply to them. They would likewise have to make an application. They would likewise have to provide you with evidence of their financial ability to conduct their business, and you would likewise vote to approve a lease, and it would be limited to 12 months. So that's the policy in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have or address any concerns that you might have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Sanders.
Patrick, I kind of went through the resolution line by line. Starting, I don't know if you want to go along with me because I actually went through it in detail. Under application for tenancy, under 1A, where it says the county manager is directed to solicit and accept application for tenancy. That's one question I have. And then the other one says, because you kind of addressed it about the other entities. In regards to solicitation, shouldn't that just be a application process versus the county manager going out to pick certain businesses?
Well, what we wanted to make sure was that there was some way that the world would know it's time to submit applications. So we could change that solicit to advertise, perhaps. But we want the world to be aware that, hey, the clock is ticking, time to get your applications in. So perhaps maybe the correction would be to change Section 1A from solicit to advertise.
Yes,
Okay.
solicit and advertise is kind of two different meanings.
Sure.
Other entities for communities' use of service, and that I would love to hear from. I have a lot more questions though, but I would love to hear from my colleagues, because in other counties, they only do this for nonprofits. So as my question was proposed to you, so if you happen to have a retail company that wants to utilize our services, you said any entity and all businesses. So how are we going to address that versus if they're not providing a service? How many for-profit companies we know that are just providing a service and not looking to make a profit?
Well, certainly if an entity is not nonprofit, it probably is motivated by profit. I would agree with that. What I wanted to do is make sure you had a policy that would apply to everyone. So if I do own a business and I show up and I say, hey, y'all own this building, I want to rent that building, they would likewise have to follow this policy. Ultimately, this board decides who the tenants are. So if you have a facility that's available for rent, and you have 3 nonprofits and a shoe store, this board can certainly say, we're not going to rent it to the shoe store. You're not obligated to accept anyone's application. You can reject applications. But I just wanted to make sure you didn't have businesses say, look, you don't have to follow this policy. That was the reason we included for-profit.
But that kind of puts us in a situation if you have 2 businesses, a nonprofit and you have a for-profit. So we're choosing between the two to where it puts us in a, versus just saying this is for nonprofit organizations providing a service to the county, a partnership with the county, making sure the service they provide is servicing our residents. So my suggestion would be just include nonprofits. Of course, it's not just only my decision.
Sure.
That would be the colleagues. In Section B, as you mentioned, you said it does not address community centers, but throughout the application, it mentions community centers. The whole entire application says community centers.
Well, there's not been an application.
The resolution, sorry. The resolution mentions community centers.
Right, and there are some sections that do apply specifically to the community centers, which is primarily the Section 2B, which is the term of the lease. I think that's the only place that community centers
It
are
mentions it a little
specifically
further.
authorized.
Yeah, it mentions a little
But-
further down.
But that is the one thing, was to limit the term of the lease to community centers for 12 months. But we could certainly take that out and make that any properties.
And the other suggestions to identify who are the community centers in Newton County.
Well, we
Who
did that.
consider a community center.
We did that before, and I think my recollection is, because I pulled up the original version, and we pulled out all of the things that we defined as community centers, because there was some debate and some argument among the board about what a community center was or wasn't. So it seems like it makes better sense just to say, if the county owns it and we want to lease it, then we have to follow a policy. Whether we want to call it a community center or call it something else, because we did get lost down the rabbit hole at the last meeting of discussing whether a particular facility was a community center or something else. So it just didn't seem like we needed to make that distinction. Let's just have a policy that applies to all county property. And that was one of the concerns raised. We wanted to make sure we weren't treating the nonprofit entities different than anyone else that was renting county property. So this will apply to anyone leasing county property, period.
So maybe we should remove the word community center.
We could certainly, under section 2B, 2B says the Board of Commissioners may select from the applicants one or more applicants who will be authorized to occupy county property pursuant to a standard lease. That would be the way to address that. So we could make that revision in section 2B, change it from community centers to county property.
And on C, as it mentions a deadline for certain deadlines, does this apply to all tenants that are currently occupying the facilities or just for incoming tenants?
So say that, what section again?
C, we're right up under where it says community center under B, we're under one, still under one.
Right,
So it's
okay.
C, where it says which completed application for tenancy shall be accepted. So establish a deadline no earlier than. So are we including this? Is this resolution, once the application is completed, are we going back to all of the tenants that are currently in those facilities and making them have these requirements as well?
That would be my recommendation. That way, everybody is on the same plane.
Financial stability, our ability to be able to be in the county facility. So I guess that needs to be outlined. What are you looking for to say financial stability or being able to operate this building or be able to utilize the building? Because if you're a nonprofit organization, you're receiving your money from grants, from fundraising. Sometimes that grant may not come back around. We have that issue with a lot of nonprofits here in the county where they've been receiving grants for so many years, and now it's not even the same grant anymore. The government has stopped it. So how are we determining if that person or that nonprofit can really utilize this building?
The board will make that determination on a case-by-case basis. That's the way this policy is written.
Okay.
Because for exactly the reason you've stated, I think it's impossible to say that, I think it would be impossible to set a standard that says you have to have X amount of dollars in the bank, or you have to have X number of months or years of capital available, because every nonprofit works differently. Some nonprofits accumulate, I don't want to say wealth, but some nonprofits accumulate large balances. Some literally live hand to mouth. And I think you are called upon in the second section to determine for yourself, however it is important to the board, what makes a nonprofit financially feasible. So I was a little concerned about setting a minimal capital requirement, because that's just not feasible for a lot of nonprofits, and maybe not necessary for some nonprofits.
So my suggestion would be is have a standard operating procedure or something that's just minimal. So we're not just talking out the side of our neck or just making up stuff on the ground based on finances. Because you might say one thing for one nonprofit and another for another nonprofit, then we have issues.
And frankly, I want to leave you the opportunity to do that. I want to give the board as much freedom as possible to select who the ultimate tenant is. I'm happy to try to come up with some measure of financial stability. I'm just not sure that it's going to make sense as you compare different entities. You know, there may be a large facility that's occupied by a nonprofit. They need a lot of money to run it.
Exactly.
There may be a small room and they don't need much money to run it. And I think I have left it to the wisdom of the board to make that determination. So
I'm going down to Roman numeral 7. When it says such other information as the county manager deems appropriate for consideration by the Board of Commissioners. Shouldn't that be by approval of the Board of Commissioners? The consideration and approval are two different.
Right.
It's brought before the board and it needs to be approved by the board, not considered.
Well, the application form, this only applies to what that application form says. I didn't want the manager to have to come back in front of the board and get the application form approved. I wanted the manager to develop the application form, put it out, let applicants send it in. All applications will come to you to consider, to approve who the ultimate tenant is. All that section 7 does, and you're talking about paragraph 1D7, if you want to follow along. All that paragraph does is give the county manager some discretion to include information, to request information in the application form without having to come back to the board to get that approved.
I only have 2 more commissioners. The Board of Commissioners may select from the applicants, which we kind of spoke of. Now, is there a process to where if all these applications are coming in, certain ones are going to be eliminated, or receiving all applications no matter who the applicants are? I want to make sure that's on record.
Yeah, this is section 2B, and it calls for all applications to be transmitted to the board.
I wanted to make sure that was on record. County-owned properties which are occupied or operated by private and non-government entities and shall not be applicable to government or quasi-governmental entities occupying county properties for the purpose of providing governmental or quasi-governmental services. Why are we putting stipulations for, I wouldn't say regular nonprofits and quasi-governmental? Yes, I know that they provide certain services, but some of them also only have 501c3. And so we're going to put those stipulations on those who are not quasi-governmental. It needs to be for all. So we're making this resolution or application for everyone. Everyone should have the same standards. Now, I understand the DMV. I completely understand that. And certain services that are provided by the state. But if they have an entity and they're a 501, everyone should be providing have the same stipulations.
Right. There are some entities, and I refer to them as quasi-governmental because they are not necessarily 501c3, for example, a development authority. Mm-hmm. A development authority is not necessarily a 501c3 organization. It is a government, but it's not really a government. You know, it's somewhere on the spectrum of government. You may have some other board or commission that's kind of a governmental entity, but it's not a government. It's not a board of commissioners. It's not a mayor and council. I think if you simply said governmental entities, if you could have, and I don't know who all of your tenants are now, there are likely, you could have I'm thinking of a juvenile court council. The law creates a juvenile court council, but it's not really a government. There's a lot of entities like that. We could pull that out if you want to. You may end up having applications from some other entities that you don't really want to evaluate. Right. Yeah.
I was just curious because if we're putting stipulations on certain entities, it needs to be on all. If we're saying that this resolution and the application is going to be for every business and there's no stipulation, then it needs to be for everyone. Because if they all have boards and they all have funds, and there has to be some form of checks and balances. So it should be for everyone. The number 4, the chairman and the county manager authorized and directed to undertake all reasonable actions necessary or advisable in furtherance of this resolution. And we kind of discussed this earlier, but can you just expound and tell the residents what the actions mean based on our enabling legislation?
So under this policy, there are a number of things that the county manager is directed to do. The county manager is directed to create an application form. The county manager is directed to transmit those applications to you within 45 days after the close of the deadline of applications. Then, after all of those are submitted, they must be presented to the Board of Commissioners, and that's an obligation placed upon the chair, who has the authority under the enabling legislation to create the agenda. I included this in as kind of a catch-all just to have one paragraph that requires the chair and the county manager to do those things authorized and required under this ordinance. You're not expanding anyone's powers. You're not limiting anyone's powers. We're just saying, look, you got to do it. That's all this provision does. And that's a fairly common provision in a lot of resolutions. that authorize everybody that is required to act pursuant to a resolution to act. So in other words, specifically as applies to this, the manager creates the application form. He doesn't have to come ask you permission to approve the application form and put it out into the universe. That's all that's intended to do.
And my last question, I just want to make sure that if anyone is removed from the facility that is brought before the board, is that a part of the resolution before the person is removed?
That's not included in the resolution, but no one else has authority to terminate a lease. That authority rests only with the board. Just like only this board has authority to approve the lease.
Thank you so much. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question I have is I'm just trying to understand, is I think it's been a while back, whereas the board said that until we got back the audit, the 3-year audit, and see where you see where the nonprofit and the 3 nonprofit was Nelson Heights, Washington Street, and the daycare facility off of 162. And because it was so high, I think it was, when we looked into it, I thought it was probably something where you went to your auditor, like Masons, and they ran a 3-year. And they said, no, it's not that. You have to do an audit where it costs you $5,000 per year. And the county had said that, well, we're going to pay for it. And I think, and I can't speak for Washington Street, but I know we turned it in and they requested at least half of the money to get going, and the other half once it's finished. And we haven't got a response. And yet you're holding up the funding for the centers until you get that response back. And we clearly just stated then that, you know, you would look at it case by case basis, and that some nonprofits, which they're all minority nonprofits that we're talking about, which serve underserviced areas in the county that we're talking about, you're saying, well, we're just going to hold up the funding, we're not going to help at no point, but yet we're putting you out there for failure. And you would see if they paid the bills up until y'all paid for the audit results, they probably are financially able to continue to do business as that nonprofit. So I'm just trying to figure out, I mean, you know, we're talking one thing here and then, but yet we do another thing in at other commissions. And so I guess this question is to you, Patrick, county attorney, is that what are we going to do, the nonprofit that serves the community, the Afro-American community? What are we as a board, what should they do in order to continue to service their citizens, that's the children, the old folks in the community at this junction, since it seems like everybody just is not going to say or do anything? And the word, if I may finish, the word that I'm saying is well, you know, government is slow. But if something is not broke until there's a solution that is made, then why are we stopping those organizations? Patrick.
So I'll speak to this policy. This policy, if this policy is approved, then what I would expect that the nonprofits utilizing county properties would do would be to get with the county management and the county staff and submit their applications as quickly as they can. Now, as for how do they get funding, I'm not involved in the funding portion of it, but it's my understanding that we're assisting them in getting their audits, and when those audits are completed and submitted, then Mr. Sims and his staff will take care of making the payments out as the budget called for.
It may follow up, but they're not being done in a timely manner. In other words, if you submit it to the county, if the auditors are requesting that the money be paid, and the county have said that they're going to pay it, then in order to get the information that you want, that we want, and yet we're not assisting as what we said. And I'm going to say this, I mean, I understand that, some people may not care about the folks who may live on this south end of town, but let's don't treat them any different. It's not a question of whether you're black or white. It's a question of just doing the right thing. That's what I'm saying. And I think the right thing is for them to go ahead and pay the auditors, just as we said, ASAP, and get the information back, and then move on accordingly is what this board has asked for.
Commissioner Calvin.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution R090622.
I'd like to make a substitute motion. Can you put in there, Mr. Chairman, can you place with the changes added, because it did have some changes, with changes?
Yes, with changes as recommended by the county attorney.
Yeah, that'd be paragraph 1A, which would be to change solicit to advertise. Paragraph 2B would be to change, well, 2B, the new 2B will simply say the Board of Commissioners may select from the applicants one or more applicants who will be authorized to occupy county property. And the other change would be the paragraph 1A.
So let's clear something up first. So Commissioner Calvin made a motion. Are you making a substitute motion? Or
He's
you?
amended. Yeah, he's amended.
Okay, so you're amending it.
He's amended.
Okay.
And I'm just going to make sure we have.
Okay.
So paragraph 1A will be changed in two regards. Change solicit to advertise and to remove other entities. So it's just individuals and nonprofits. And remove the reference to community center, make that reference to all county.
There's been a motion made by Commissioner Calvin. Is there a second?
Second.
Been second by Commissioner Sanders. Any more discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we mentioned earlier for profits using the county facilities. I'm not sure what would be an example of a for-profit using one of our facilities. What?
I'm not aware of any, but if you had, I mean, the same way a nonprofit uses one, just imagine you had a building and Toys R Us came and said, I want to rent this building from you. You know, it's just, you're a landlord, they'd be a tenant. Anyone can ask you to rent them property. And the reason I included other entities was to cover that. Now, ultimately, this board's got to approve that anyway.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily need a policy that says we're going to say no. You can simply say no. But it could happen, and I can't tell you that. There's nothing unlawful about it. That's right, I can tell you that. There's nothing unlawful about the county owning property and leasing it to a for-profit enterprise. That's lawful. There are some counties and cities that are in the business of being landlords. I don't recommend it, but there are some that do that.
Yeah, well, the reasoning behind that question was we have a lot of nonprofits, a lot of entities that are woven into the fabric of our community, and I would hate to see them eliminate an opportunity. I'd hate to see a for-profit eliminate an opportunity for a nonprofit or someone, or a church, or one of many nonprofits.
Yeah,
that's where I was thinking.
This board will always be that backstop, because no lease will be executed, no lease will be entered into unless a majority of this board at a properly advertised meeting votes to grant a lease. So you'll always be that backstop.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you so much.
Chairman, the next item on the agenda is item number 9, the approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Commissioners, you had an opportunity to look at the consent agenda. I seek a motion of approval, please.
Second.
It's been a motion by Commissioner Edwards and second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. It passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is item number 10. Covington Newton County 911 is requesting approval of public safety radio system change.
Thank you.
We have a presenter, Ms. Trudy Henry, the director.
Thank you for being here tonight. Ms. Henry?
Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I guess what I'm here for is we have a change order for the public safety radio system that's going in. The change order basically encompasses three things, one of them being enhanced data. The enhanced data would give us the ability to know where all radios are at all times. The second item is for some APX XE radios, which would allow a footprint outside of Newton County, the Sheriff's Department for their transportation units, and when they transport prisoners and other needs, once they go outside the radio footprint, those radios would be used for that. And then the subscriber unit total, the amount of radios that was in the original contract versus the number of radios that is needed now 2 years later. It kind of went up and down in different agencies throughout the county, but there's like a total of 51 additional radios needed. Also for the enhanced data, there's a licensing cost that goes with those radios of $107 per radio. So the total for this change order is $639,813.
Thank you. I do have a question before I get a motion. Mr. Sims, does this cover Mr. Brown as well?
No, sir, this does not cover the water services. That will be coming back before you all.
Okay. Board, I seek a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Been motioned by Commissioner Edwards and second by Commissioner Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is Parks and Recreation Department. The presenter will be Mr. Dwayne Mask as well as Mr. Jeff Prine, the project manager. It's for purchasing. They're requesting approval of Sunbelt Builders Incorporated Design Build Amendment.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here this evening. Sorry.
Yeah, good evening. So this is a GMP amendment for the renovation of the Turner Lake Community Center's restroom facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And this has gone through the design process and been bought out, and we're bringing this to you tonight so we can get started with construction.
Thank you, sir. Guys, let's seek a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Henderson and second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you.
Chairman, we have one more item, and for correction purposes, Mr. Cale Curtis represented Mr. Dwayne Mask tonight, but we have the next item on the agenda, number 12, for Parks and Recreation Department. Purchasing is requesting approval from Matrix Engineering Group Incorporated for proposal number 082422-1, and again, this will be Mr. Jeff Prine and Mr. Cale Curtis.
Once again, this is for the geotechnical engineering and borings that we're doing out of the Spring Hill Neighborhood Park. So it's task order number 13 under their task order contract. And we're all asking for authorization for that to be signed so we can move forward with those services.
Thank you, sir. I seek a motion, please. Been motioned by Commissioner Henderson. Can I get a second?
Second.
It's been second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you. And if you hit me out, if I'm thinking right, and this the test for the concrete test of the soil or something?
So this is to do boring, is to check for the soil conditions so that we can understand where rock is and help do our analysis for our civil design.
Okay, so we just one last question. How soon are we anticipating for maybe once those tests are completed, we maybe beginning work over at the Spring Hill Park?
So we will receive next week our schematic design package, and then we're on schedule to have everything completed for design and out for bid early next year.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda is number 13, consideration to approve resolution R090622A to initiate abandonment proceedings for the Fairfield property. It indicates a resolution by the Board of Commissioners of Newton County, Georgia, to determine that certain county right-of-way no longer serves a substantial public purpose, to initiate abandonment procedures, and for other purposes.
Thank you.
That's me.
Patrick.
So, members of the board, about 2 miles east of here, off of 278, there's a road called Fairfield Road. If you're traveling east on 278, turn right on the Fairfield Road. It will gently turn to the left, and the road will essentially change into a street called Todd Drive. If you were to travel straight on Fairfield Road and depart from the road and just go straight instead of turning left into Todd Drive, for about 300 feet, there's an old roadbed that is labeled on the tax maps as a road and may appear on a subdivision plat as a road. It has never been a road. It is simply drawn on a plat as a road. The adjacent property owner, Mr. Greg Maloney, has requested that the county consider abandoning that portion of Fairfield Road, and the resolution before you today is asking you to declare that that old roadbed serves no public purpose. I don't think it ever has. I don't think it was ever put into use. And if you do approve this resolution, we'll come back to you after we run some public notices. There will actually be a public hearing for you to formally abandon the road and authorize a conveyance to the two adjoining landowners, which is Mr. Maloney and the Fairfield Rapid Club. So this is sort of the step one of a two-phase process that authorizes us to proceed with the abandonment.
Thank you. Guys, I seek a motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution R090622A to initiate abandonment proceedings for Fairfield Road.
Can I get a second, please? Second. Who's second? Okay. It's been motioned by Commissioner Cowell and second by Commissioner Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is item number 14, a discussion regarding ARPA funding.
Mr. Sims, you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So last meeting, we had the consultants come before you all, and we talked about the ARPA funding. Before you today, we provided packets for each of you all, drafts for a working draft that you all initiated back in 2021 for some categories for the ARPA funding. We just wanted to make sure if those categories will remain the same now, if they needed to change. Also included in your packet was by district, your funding request, how you want to use your $1 million. And then the third item in your packet was reflected on what we use the ARPA funding for currently as far as the projects. So we wanted to just have some discussion about that to make sure we were on the same page before we provided this list to our consultants.
Let me jump in here. This question goes out to the ARPA Fund Committee. Have you guys had I don't know if we can get some feedback, somebody has it, like, have you guys had an opportunity to meet and come up with a suggestion that you want to submit to the Board of Commissioners of how much money to give to small businesses in the community? If you haven't, I need you guys to do that. And I need you, and we'll push behind the 8 ball, we need to do it as quick as we possibly can. I thought that was already done. No. Have you got, go ahead.
I sent the email to the entire board on July 13th, detailing it based on the amount of applicants we have and how much we can provide, but I did not receive a response. So I did do that.
So have y'all met as a board? And
at that point, we were told we were moving towards a consultant. So that's why it stopped.
So I need you guys, I really need, if we want to push this out and get these funds out to the community as quick as possible, we really need for you guys to keep it in the form that we already had it in, and that's that you guys meet and y'all make a suggestion back to the board. So how quick can y'all meet to make a suggestion to the board of commissioners so we can move forward with this? Because the goal is to get the funds out. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
And I'm not trying to put y'all on the spot, but the board need to know that way we'll have a guideline that comes from the ARPA committee that says, hey, we want y'all to consider these numbers.
I just sort of did that, Mr. Chairman, but nobody on the board responded.
And Mr. Chairman, if we can, this is also important where states working draft, because some of the categories here, we don't know if they're relevant now, and I think I mentioned that last time. For example, it says COVID incentive program, $100 per participant. This particular document I received from staff indicated it was not necessarily approved by the board. This was a proposed draft. So I want to make sure that what I have here is approved by the board, and if it is, if the categories remain the same. And again, I'm talking about COVID incentive program, mass vaccination site. All of these things, I was advised by staff that this was provided to you all back in November 5th, 2021 to be exact. And we just need to make sure if this is still relevant.
Okay. So if I could add, Mr. Chairman, two things. The board did vote on the categories of the ARPA distributions, but it might make sense to revisit them since so much time has passed.
That's exactly
Second
right.
thing is when the ARPA committee met and we talked about the business assistance program, we operated within the allocation that was on that sheet, which was $400,000 in the first distribution and $400,000 in the second distribution. Now, the second distribution, the second $10 million, the board has not voted on how to allocate the second compromise, but only the first one.
So the issue is that we got consultants out here working on trying to get these, trying to get business approved to receive these funds. And the guidelines that I heard them say is from $1,000 to $500,000. Is that what, that wasn't correct?
What I think they're going to do is make a recommendation to the board about how to evaluate businesses and what the range of awards should be. And I think it might make sense to hear from them before we set a dollar figure. Because if they come back and say, you know, you've got 5,000 businesses that need $250,000 each, we're going to have a problem, right? I think it might make sense for the committee to meet with the consultant, perhaps. I hate creating meeting upon meeting, but I don't think you want us making a decision and the consultants not being involved in that decision. I think that would make some better sense.
Well, I do want them involved in the decision, but I want the board, I want the ARPA committee, who's been dealing with this since day one, to say, hey, board, we want to recommend that you guys consider this level to this level, which can be ran through the consultants. That's not a problem. Go ahead, sir, Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think it would be prudent if we had a ARPA subcommittee meeting. And number one, we went back through these categories and made another recommendation to this board.
That's fine.
To update or stay as is, and then also update the totals, the subtotals per category. And I think those have to go in order, right? So I think we just need to have a meeting and with a clear agenda of those, at least those two things, maybe more. I don't know. You guys may disagree, but
no, that's fine. But we do need to hear from the committee.
Yeah, quickly. Yeah, I understand. Thank you,
Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think one of the first tasks from the consultants also was kind of moving towards you all's list from the district, and also included tonight in the packet is the proposed list from the commissioners for their list. When we talked with them, I think my understanding was that they were going to move with you all's list first to see if you know, if it's appropriate, and then move as far as issuing the funds on your list first, the commissioners.
Okay, I didn't hear that part, but okay. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask too, I know one of the things the consultant talked about, of course, we did already have money set aside for our small business and 501c3s in a separate, I guess you can say, line item. But then, of course, some of us as well in the monies that were allocated towards our districts also has, you know, monies geared towards 501c3s and nonprofits. So I think another thing that the subcommittee can maybe look at or review to say, do we want to pull those monies from each district that's been set aside for small business and nonprofit, put it into one bucket, or do you want to keep it separated? And even if we put it in one bucket, not to say that we still don't assist those in those specific districts, we still do that, but we're just working with one bucket versus 6 buckets.
The total.
Total.
The total, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I guess that's something that we can look at as well as, you know, are we going to keep that separate, or are we going to put that the same as well? Because that's probably something that
The ARPA committee.
yes, can present to us as well.
Commissioner
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Henderson, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. C. Yeah, and I guess this is to Commissioner Sanders, the question that they had. And you said that you had submitted to us, the board, a certain amount of money for as far as the businesses. So could you kind of just tell me a little bit about that, if you would, please?
And I'll resend it back to everybody. It was kind of broken down based on if we give, it's the highest was 10,000, and it went all the way down to about 1,000.
So since you said that, so the ones that submitted for 150,000, all of that is void?
We would just have to set up a standard rate, because there's no possible way we're going to be able to accommodate somebody who asks for $100,000. Just to be fair, to make sure we're touching just the amount of businesses that we can based on the qualification, and to be fair, we have to set a standard rate.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that people know that.
Yeah.
So what we need, guys, we need a clean document that will take care of all of this that you guys are laying out tonight to come from the ARPA committee and the consultants to the board. And if we can do this as quick as possible, it would be great. That way, the funds can start being released. Go ahead.
If I may continue, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, you know, why we keep waiting? The board is here. They received the email, and I think that is something that's valid. In fact, you know, whatever Commissioner Simmons has sent in concerning author funds and other things have always been on point. And I think, you know, what are we waiting on? Is there any way? And I guess this is Patrick. Is there any way that we could address this now if everybody's agreeing? If not, just say I'm not agreeing right now. I want to talk about it more, and go ahead and set the limit at 10,000 on down and move on.
You're referring to the business assistance?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the board could certainly authorize a maximum of, you know, $10,000 per business, you know, set a cap, and leave it to the consultant to sort this out of the program to figure how much between 0 and 10,000 an applicant gets. You could authorize that today. You know, I don't know if, what I don't know is, I don't know if the consultant has a different recommendation to make. We just don't know that. We've not engaged. We haven't had that discussion with the consultant. But to your point, yes, you certainly could. If you want to adopt a resolution and go ahead and say that the maximum is $10,000 and direct the consultant to come up with a plan to determine how much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just want to make a sidebar comment. It's not the consultant that is running these ARPA funds, it's the Board of Commissioners. And I think they should be able to give us a recommendation. It's up to us to approve it or deny it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Sam.
No.
Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Sanders.
I'm glad Commissioner Mason brought up the point about the 2 separate allocations, and I did talk to the consultant afterwards. And with the suggestion that I made to her, she said it was a good suggestion, was We deal with the $800,000 that we already have to reach those individuals based on all the applications. And whatever left, it can be divided amongst our districts. Like I had mine set in my area to give $1,000 to certain people in to the businesses in my district. So if there's a certain amount of District 3 residents that are left over from the application process, then I can provide them or accommodate them with the amount that I have set aside. So she said that was a good idea. I spoke to her afterwards.
So again, that's why I'm saying we need for you guys to meet as soon as possible. Commissioner Edwards, if you guys, Mr. Sims, can you?
Yes, sir. We'll coordinate
arrange
a
that
meeting right away.
Okay.
I think the one thing, Mr. Chair, I would ask the board members to do is to make sure that your district allocations on this handout are accurate.
That's
So
exactly
if
what
any of you see it, just let Mr. Sims know that if there's been any change. And I know, Mr. Henderson, I think yours is different, but we've got yours. I'm not sure if it is.
I think
we've got it.
I think Commissioner Henderson submitted his directly to the consultants after the meeting. But if also we asked that each commissioner resubmit it to Mr. Sims at the last meeting. I'm hoping that you guys did that.
Yes, I did receive that, but that's one of the reasons why we have it before you all today, because one of the districts is reflecting a more amount than is available. So we don't know if we have your latest version, Commissioner Henderson, but the version that we have now reflects $100,000 over their amount. So that's why we want you all to look at this one more time before we submit it to the consultants to make sure it's correct.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do this. If you see anything that Commissioner Henderson, if you can get with Mr. Sims, either after the meeting or tomorrow or when you're available, so we can get that addressed as soon as possible. And that way, when they go into the meeting with the consultants,
Absolutely.
everything that you're asking for will be presented on that list.
Yes.
Some of the allocations that the commissioners have really should come out of the main pot because they're servicing the whole community. Like Commissioner Henderson had food pantry, and he's covering a whole bunch of food pantries in the entire county. So that should not come out of his allocation, which is why he will know it should come out of the food pantry portion that's on the main page. So he's servicing people he's servicing food pantries in all of Newton County, not just his district. And we have on here food pantries.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
That's the allocation.
But we have it on his list.
Yeah. So remember we kind of talked about that. I said, for instance, with the broadband, where Commissioner Edwards, it was coming out of his allocation, but we really have broadband on here. So it should come out of it, even though that was one of his allocations from his $1 million, it should come out of the broadband because it's servicing the county, not just his district. That's the allocation.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
The only thing about it, Commissioner Sanders, we just used the list that was provided to us from you all.
Yeah, I was explaining
yes.
why if he went over, you can go out of the allocations out of the main one, the food pantry.
Yes, sir.
Like the youth commissioner one that I have, that's really for the whole county. That should not just come out of one commissioner's pot, because that's for the entire.
So guys, again, this is why you guys need to have a subcommittee meeting. So when you guys come before the board, Commissioner Henderson ain't got to worry about his, Commissioner Sanders ain't got to worry about hers, Commissioner Cowan, Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Edwards. You don't have to worry about any of that. When you come out here on the floor, all of that stuff has already been taken care of. So
correct. And if I could just say one thing, I will call you tomorrow. I won't come in the office. I will call you tomorrow, and we'll go over some of the same things, the specifics as what we just spoke of, and kind of maybe readjust it to $100,000. However, if the number is wrong, and I believe what you said, I kind of got staff to assist me. So, amen.
Thank y'all. So if Mr. Sims, if you can get that meeting going, sir, I would greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is item number 15. This particular item is a citizen's request for penalties and interest waiver by our tax commissioner, Mr. Marcus Jordan, as well as Ms. Carlotta Veal, if they're present.
Ms. Veal's not here, so I don't know.
So are you coming up?
Well, I was gonna let her do her discussion, because, I mean, it's really her personal issue.
All right. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so guys, either we can, I'm just gonna remove it until they will submit and she come before us. She's able to come before us. That'll be the correct thing to do. Go ahead, Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you. And was she notified to be here? I guess I'm directing to Patrick.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
So I guess she made a request to be on the agenda.
So
and
she confirmed that she. Okay. So in the event that she made a request to be here and asking us to act on it, so are we tabling it, or are we just gonna just deny it and move on?
Well, I don't think we should deny that she's not here. So I'm going to use chairman's privilege tonight to remove her off the agenda until she is ready to come before the board and present.
Could you put a time limit? And I don't know. Could you put a time limit on it to the next meeting or to the?
I don't know her either, but I don't know if she may got sick today, so I don't really want to put a time limit on her.
Right.
Just give her an opportunity to come back before the board.
So you take me to the next meeting?
Yes. So I'm gonna use. So what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use chairman's privilege to remove her off the agenda until she is ready to come back before the board and present her case.
Question.
Yes, sir.
And this is to the county attorney. Can we move somebody off indefinitely?
Well,
or is there a time limit?
She's made the request. She's entitled to have a decision, but I think it makes sense to. She's making a request. I think it makes sense to get with her and find out when she can be here. So yeah, I think that's the appropriate.
No, I got get with her.
Thank you. Next is item 16, citizen comments. This is an opportunity that we allow citizens to make comments. You may come at this time. You have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and your address for the record, please. Citizen comments. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Frederick Johnson, 1036 Highway 162, Covington. Just want to remind the board that nothing has been done about the realignment of Moat Road. I haven't seen any stobs up or whatsoever. You promised several years ago that it was going to be done, so let's do it. Okay, I appreciate it. And also, if this board would contact the DOT and see if we could get some kind of speed limit, slow down around Good Hope Church in Spring Hill, during that community right in there. If we could just get the speed limit lowered, 5 miles per hour would be a big help. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Edwards. Commissioner Mason. Commissioner Sanders.
Yes, sir. In the past few weeks, I've had an opportunity to speak to a few organizations in the community and residents about various matters in the county. I was able to share some of my concerns that I feel are very prominent and should be addressed. I will no longer utilize my time just to only speak on events that I'm hosting in the community, but matters that concern our constituents. I didn't step into this role to see how many events I can host, but how I can make a difference in this community. Although socialization is very important to them to get to know your legislator, but what are we doing for our community? I presented 14 concerns. One of my concerns is, and I know that we're working on it, but it's a concern of me, is a grant writer. Until the county has a grant writer or staff, we are leaving much money on the table to assist with our affordable housing, recreation, and one just came out for emergency services, going into emergency services. There is an issue in regards to sirens on the west side of Newton County. If we don't have the amount of sirens on the west side of county because we are the most dense, our residents will not be able to hear any notifications or what's happening on that side. The other one is the response time in our 911 certificate. We have to make sure that we are working with those individuals to make sure that our residents are receiving the response time that's required, because we have residents who are losing their lives. EMS is not getting to them on time because of the response of our EMS services getting to them. Development and density. Make sure we update our comprehensive plan to support the smart growth, that we have the infrastructure to support the growth in the county. Planning and zoning. There are zoning issues that have been set 30 years ago, and because we have not revisited those or put them back where they should be, developers are coming in and putting in apartment complexes and various things. So 30 years ago, that was perfect. But in 2022, with a lot of density, that's an issue when we have a lot of infrastructure in this county. Economic development, I know that we need a little bit more housing and rooftops, but our citizens are spending their funding in neighboring counties. And if we have the sales taxes that we needed, we won't be taxing the citizens as much because we have the infrastructure, we have the economic development, the restaurants, and those various things coming in the county. Recreation, providing recreation for all areas of the county. Standard operating procedures put in place so we're not being, again, a reactive county, but more of a proactive county. And our commissioners retreat. I've been speaking about this for 2 years to make sure that we are on the same page and path. I have spoken with other counties who do commissioners retreats. So what they said, it has been a service to them to get to know each other and also to share what each commissioner wants to see in their district. So when we're sitting up here, we're not hearing it for the first time. We have an understanding of how you want to see your area. And on that note, October 1st is Newton County Ladies Retreat, and I thank you so much.
Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Ms. C. You know, here lately there's been a lot of issues that people have spoke with and in the papers have written about. And, you know, it kind of included me, not necessarily by name, but it kind of said that, well, we did this or that we were, we voted a certain way and on suits and that we were sued $500,000 and so, but, you know, there was never an opportunity for J.C. Henderson to kind of just give his perspective as far as the suit, as far as to our former county manager. So this Thursday at 7 o'clock in this Light Community Center, anyone who wants to come and ask any question, please do. And I'll stand up before you and tell you exactly what you may want to know or what you may not want to know. I would like for the citizens to afford me that opportunity. Also, we want to talk about the direction that we would like to see if we are elected for Green Hill and Nelson Heights, Green Acres, and all of the all of the District 4 in the directions and the services that they are expecting from their district commissioner. So we want to have a sit down and chat talk, maybe take the mic and put it to the side and just talk up man to man, woman to woman, and talk about what we're going to do. We also want to address the food issue in Newton County. If anybody has ever been in town, they've seen them long lines of people just trying to get food. And one thing that the President, Joe Biden, said, look at all those big old expensive cars pulled up to the food bank to get boxes of food. And he said, you know, we're within hard times. And so I just simply just say this, if you want to know, from my perspective, and not what you read from the Republican papers, then come to the 8 o'clock meeting at 7 o'clock on this Thursday, the 8th, and we'll talk. Thank you.
Commissioner Cowell. Guys, thank you so much. There's no need for executive session tonight. I seek a motion that we adjourn, please. Can I get a second? Thank you. It's a motion by Commissioner Henderson, a second by Commissioner Edwards. All in favor? Stand adjourned.